How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Grand Archive video here on Red Zone Rogue. Today, we are doing a Grand Archive update video. I was kind of like, scrolling through my Twitter feed yesterday and I saw a new post from the Grand Archive Twitter, some new art, this new special, collector frame card. It looks amazing. I'm going to show it off right here. And I figured, it's about time that we do an update for Grand Archive because a lot of stuff has happened since their Kickstarter was successful. And they were very, very successful on their Kickstarter. They ended up with over $1 million. I think they are technically the second most successful TCG Kickstarter in history after Sorcery. And a lot of things have changed since then, and they all give me a lot of hope and confidence in the game. So let's start talking about them. The first one I want to talk about happened a little while ago, but I don't think I've mentioned it here on the channel before. So initially, on the Grand Archive Kickstarter, and I'm going to assume, by the way, that you've seen my other Grand Archive videos. I assume you know what the game is and kind of the gist of it. And if you don't, definitely watch my other videos on Grand Archive. I have a good chunk of them, including 2 videos with one of the developers of the game, me and him playing Grand Archive, and I'm just asking him questions. So those are great if you just want to get more information about the game in general. But one of the things that they were going to do with their Kickstarters is they wanted to incorporate NFTs into the game as a means of digital card acquisition, I guess. They basically wanted to turn their cards, you can like scan them, they would become NFTs, and you would use them in like a digital client in the future or something like that. I think that was the intent. It wasn't like a Bored Ape Yacht Club thing. I think they wanted to use them to make into cards, in the future. And regardless of what you feel about NFTs, it's safe to say that they're very controversial, right? Whether you like them or you dislike them, and for the record, I'm not really a fan of NFTs. They're controversial, right? And so what Grand Archive did is they basically have announced that they are pulling all the NFTs from their game. They're not going to touch it, which is, I think, a really, really good change. Not just because I'm not a huge fan of NFTs, but because they're so controversial that if your card game has NFTs, it literally just turns some people off to them immediately, right? And if your goal is to get the widest amount of reach possible, then cutting them out is probably a really, really good idea. So it's something I really, really agree with. I personally know some big content creators, significantly bigger than me, who will literally never touch a game that has NFTs in it ever, like period. So this is a good move. I really like this. I think it's great for the health of the game, and we're going to see this going forward. They'll just keep making changes that are for the health of the game. So another change that they're doing is that they're going to be releasing the starter decks alongside the booster box. Now, previously they were going to release them like a couple months in advance, but I think it's actually much smarter to release them with the booster box product because you don't have that period of staleness between when the decks are released and then when the booster boxes are released. Because if you do that, right, so say you release the starter decks and people are like, oh, this is awesome, it's so much fun. Okay, now what? And then you have to wait 2 or 3 months before the next booster box product comes out. And then by that time, do you still care? Like, are you still interested? Maybe you are, but a lot of people are going to be turned off because, let's be frank, people don't really have great attention spans these days. And so, especially with all of the other card games coming out. So releasing the booster box with the starter decks and cutting out the NFTs really gives Grand Archive the best possible chance to be successful on its initial launch. And that's what you really want. You want your game to be on the best foot forward, especially at the premiere launch of your game. So I really like both of those things. I think they give me a lot of confidence that the company is doing what they need to do to make the game as successful as possible. A couple other things that they're going to be doing that I think are interesting is that they're continually working on the balance of the game, which I think is great, right? They're taking a lot of feedback into account. They're rigorously testing it. I mean, a lot of the cards are done, but a lot of these things are just number tweaks here and there to make sure that the game is balanced and to make sure that the game is fun. And I think, once again, those are very, very important, especially for your first set. If you release the first set and it's busted as hell, people are going to complain. And it's not going to do well. And they're going to be like, why do we want to play this game if you're just going to release a broken product? So I think that's really good. I think that putting the time and effort into these kind of things really tells me that they care about their game. more than just making money. They want it to be successful, right? And they want it to be not just successful in terms of like the first release, but in terms of like the longevity of the game. So I really like that. I know a lot of other Kickstarter games are just like, it's fine, push it out. Like the cards are done, slap on some stuff and just push it out. But no, they're continuing to work on it, which I think is very, very good and important. And that also carries over to the quality of the cards themselves, not just what the cards do, but the quality of like the card stock and the foiling. And so here we have some older ones, right? I'm going to show you some. So here is one of the really early test print Grand Archive cards. It's pretty dark, even though it has like, you know, this sleeve and everything in it. It's still pretty dark. And then we have some other ones, including these like promo foils here, and this test star pattern foil, which they didn't like, so they're not going to be going with that. It has changed a lot since here. So we also have these newer test print cards that I showed off in the last video, and these ones I think look really, really good in terms of like inking and foiling and just like how they do the spot foiling on it. I think they look fantastic, absolutely brilliant. But it turns out that these cards are too thick, actually, for what they need to do. For like, you know, it creates production problems. And so what they're doing is they have to go back and then redo the card stock and card thickness. And the fact that they care that much, that they really want it to get, you know, to get it perfect, shows, you know, a lot, in my opinion. So much so that they already printed a bunch of like these free demo decks to give out to folks with this thicker card stock. And instead of just like throwing them away or whatever, they're giving them out at conventions and if you meet them in person or whatever. And those will not be tournament viable because they have a different card stock. Same with these ones. These cards will not be tournament viable. But I think it just goes to show the lengths that the Grand Archive team is going to make sure their game is as pristine as possible. There's a lot of quality control going on here, which is so good. We see this happen even in bigger games, you know. The quality control just slips through the cracks. And these guys are just a small team, and they're really going for it. So all of these things give me so much faith in Grand Archive. I'll be completely transparent. I backed Grand Archive for, let's just say 4 digits, right? Let's just say 4 digits. It's not that crazy for me when I get into a new game to go that hard, but I don't really get into a new game this deep very often. The last time I got into a new game this deep was literally Flesh and Blood. I'm also going this deep into Sorcery as well, but that's for another video. We'll maybe do an update on Sorcery when I get a little bit more news on that. But I think Grand Archive is awesome, and by the way, I put that much into the game, not because I want to invest in it or anything. It's because I just want some boxes to open up and play and build decks and have videos on the channel. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. I think there's some surprises in this first set that are going to be really, really cool, including those collector rares that I have an image of right here. It is really, really cool. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of Grand Archive in the comments down below, and stay tuned for some more Grand Archive content. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.